Welcome, wrestling card collectors. We're here with a special edition of CollectAWrestlePalooza. I have on the phone Wax Pac-Man. Why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, thank you very much, Tom. Yeah, my name is Josh. I am the Wax Pac-Man. Been a wrestling collector, I guess trading card collector since, I don't know, late 80s, mid-90s, somewhere in that time frame. Just excited to be here, though.
Awesome. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, how we connected and you and I, how this video came to be. I know it's a little bit of an interesting story, and it was somewhat just by happenstance, but I think you had posted some things that I reacted to. Maybe we watched each other's videos and both have a background in finance. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I typically listen to Zan's show on Mondays and when I pick up my daughter from kindergarten. And I heard your story, and then I reached out to you. I'm not real shy on social media, and we just kind of formed a bond and a friendship, and we're kind of kindred spirits. Me and you were chasing two things. One I just learned this morning, too. I think we were bidding on the same vintage wrestling card lot from like the 50s. But then we also kind of hit it off on, I'll let you take the baton, but a little other nugget that we kind of saw some fun in, some potential, some ROI, not a lot of people in the space, less
Right.
crowded sandbox, so to speak.
Right.
I like to fish in ponds where there's not a lot of fishermen.
Right.
And all the fishermen are in the one pond right now, so that doesn't mean I'm going to give up fishing, but, we're just trying to diversify our palette and our portfolio and just for fun, really, I think, right? I mean.
No, that's a great point. And I second that. There was some synergy just when we started replying to each other's comments and tweets and Instagram posts and you name it. Now, I've only been at this hobby for about a year now. I collected as a kid, and that was the genesis of wanting to explore it as an adult, but taking it seriously only for about 12 to 18 months, just about as long as the pandemic. I got into it about the same time a lot of folks did, due to having a little bit more time at home. Tell me a little bit about your history. I think you've been at this a little bit longer than I have.
Well, our timeline's somewhat similar, but then somewhat chopped up. Like most people, I started collecting as a kid. I'm 38 years old. I was born in 83. I remember 91 Classic. I told Zan this story, being in my underwear drawer with my Hasbro figures and the Rockers and Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. I can still picture the green tights in my head. And that blue Classic, that was the first wrestling card set that I vividly remember. I had a ton of cards. I wasn't a pure wrestling guy. I was all over the board. Whatever was at the deli, the Wawa, which is a convenience store in Philadelphia, I bought. Card shops were pretty prevalent. My baseball coaches owned card shops. I was at it like 90 miles an hour from like age 7 to 15. And then eBay hit, and my dad said, hey, this might be a thing. You should probably sell some of those cards. He bought me a scanner. I scanned it, and I learned everything. I mean, I was selling on eBay at the time when PayPal wasn't even a company. And then people were sending you money orders and checks and physical money in the mail. I mean, I hear that narrative a little bit. But I remember every time somebody paid for a card via PayPal, I got $5 in my account because that's how new and green it was at the time. And then to fast forward, and not to bore you too much, but then, life happens, college, girls, women, there's, more women living underneath me in college.
Right, and it's not cool anymore to be a wrestling card collector, right?
They went to my high school.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, wow, let's leave this in Tucson, Arizona. I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona at this time. 3 hours away. I even though in college, though, I did find one guy who I want to reach out to, go into a little hole-in-the-wall closet card shop, and I did still go in there, but it was kind of like everyone. It was less. The card shops died. My soul kind of died.
Right.
I put everything on ice. 2015 rolls around. I'm in love. I donate the cards to the Salvation Army. I'm taking a road trip across the country for a year. I bought an RV. I was like, I'm done. These are pieces of cardboard, and I was out.
Yeah.
And it was staggering to me because it just wasn't. I had a baby on the way. I was just in a different time in my life. But these guys were ransacking my donation in the drive-through line at the Salvation Army in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, a pretty highfalutin area.
Right.
And I was like, holy smokes. And I went home, and I was like, all right, didn't think of it. I was not a guy who jumped on board during the pandemic. I'm pretty much late to the party. I mean, maybe, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, I started kind of getting into stuff. And then I liked it, but then I had no fascination with chasing Lucas and the Prism and doing that whole like smash and grab deal. So I was like, oh man, this is fun and cool and big ROI. Like I could sell a Joe Burrow card for 40 grand, but this isn't for me. So then I kind of gravitated towards wrestling.
Right.
And I was like, this makes me feel good. This is like nostalgic. Like I had a show this morning on Whatnot. It didn't do very well, but every Saturday morning as a kid, I used to wake up and watch wrestling on USA. I think it was like 10 o'clock. Yep. And it just made me feel good. Like I sold these action pack cards for 94, 95. They're actually great cards. They sold for a song. But you know what? It just made me feel good. Right. And I think I use the analogy on my show too. Like, let's say there's some big natural disaster. Hopefully not. But like, let's say there's nothing left. And you're holding up a Jerry Rice card numbered to 25 that you just bought to get a rip versus, you know, a card that makes you feel good. Like I don't know, a wrestler you know, like Roddy Piper I collect.
Yep.
I love Roddy Piper. I love Roddy Piper for a lot of reasons because he has moral fiber, his documentary is awesome, he's a family man, he's a great dad. So like when I hold his cards up on my desk, like that inspires me. So like I use that analogy, like if you're sitting in a cave with that Jerry Rice versus the thing that makes you feel good, like end of days, I want something that makes me feel good inside. That's just how I operate though. Don't get me wrong too, I like making money, you know. I think every guy in this hobby sold something. So,
no, that's great.
That's too much, too little.
No, that's great. You're touching on a lot of key points here. I think a lot of collectors are going to relate to, and I can say I think
we're up inside for a while.
Right, and we all have our own nostalgic memories of particular characters. For me, Roddy Piper is of course the movie They Live, which is to this day one of my favorites. And Piper's Pit. You know, Piper's Pit was.
He was the first crossover wrestler, like Sam talks about, movies and Batista and The Rock and this. Roddy was doing it before everybody, you know?
That's right.
And
that's right. A visionary.
Even the trash talking. Like, you watch his documentary, he had to wear a friggin' Kevlar jacket because people were shanking him on the way home. Like, he would drive home from a match in the A&E special. That whole leather jacket, the bottom of it has Kevlar because he got stabbed like half a dozen times.
Oh, really?
People know that.
Huh.
The A&E documentary, you better have some Kleenex. Maybe I'm running low testosterone.
I'm over 40 now, so I've got less testosterone than you, although...
I never cry, and I bawled my eyes
out
in the movie. It also goes into another, we'll do a video another day about collecting with moral fiber. Me and Doug Driesel talk about that. Because for a while, I was stashing cards like Ric Flair, and I was like, man, if my 6-year-old daughter sees this, I mean, sure, they'll be worth a ton of money, but she's going to be like, my dad collected this guy, you know?
So, that's great. Now, I want to go back to, I'm going to tell a story myself here, because one of the things you mentioned a couple minutes ago was about women, and I have a quick story with that, and this is actually going to lead us into the meat and potatoes of this video, which is the project that we're starting up here. When I met my wife and I started dating her, I had a closet full of UFC and Wrestling VHS and DVDs. Full of them. And they were ones, you do know where this is going. And they were ones and I kept them in pristine condition because that's just what I do with my personal stuff, regardless of my collection is, you know, when I used to buy video games to play video games, I would always keep the instruction book and I would thumb it with care and all that stuff. That's just my, you know, how I revere these objects. I just think these objects are great. So I had Rare, I had ECW, I had, you know, First Prince, I had all kinds of videos. And I said to myself, oh my God, when she visits my apartment, I do not want her to find these DVDs. So
it's true. I mean, people say it's not true, Andy. There is some truth to it.
So I sold them all. I sold them all to the local comic book shop. I took whatever they would give me, and I mean, I think they gave me $400 or $500 for the whole collection, which I was thrilled with. But that was a steal. I mean, they would probably the collection would probably buy a small car right now. But anyway, so I got rid of all of those. But now that I am settled with my wife and she knows me and I know her, I feel very comfortable with my man cave full of collectibles now. So.
Yeah.
So women is a part of that if that's your thing. So.
Well, I mean, right now I am a bachelor, so I mean it's not a problem. But I mean, it's something I think about in the future. So.
There you go. There you go.
I did have a partner at one time, a significant relationship, and we were together 6-7 years. And I remember I had the Ric Flair 30 for 30 on.
Yeah.
And she came in the room, and she was like, "What are you watching?"
Yeah. Did she break up with you that night, or did she wait a week or two?
That kind of died at the card shop at the Salvation Army when that guy who anally collected and was so meticulous like you. I used to re-sleeve everything. Everything was mint, Tom. I took great pride in my collection. Like the way I opened the packs, I was like, it's weird. It does something like, I mean, I'm a little bit OCD as it is, but. Yeah, I don't know. It really killed part of me when I saw those guys just ransacking through, white count card boxes, and I had just taken care of it like great for 35 years, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good. So, anyway, so I was talking about DVDs and VHS. So,
correct.
We connected on VHS. So, if I remember correctly, you posted. I think you had just purchased a King of the Ring or a SummerSlam or something. And I saw the post on Instagram, and I remember you wrote, "It's my new addiction," and it just struck a chord with me. I said to myself, "Man, I've been thinking about this, and I've been teasing this idea around in my head to start collecting VHS again." And it looked like you had started. So, tell me a little bit about that post. I mean, where are you at with VHS right now?
Yeah, I purchased 1992. I just pulled it out. Coliseum Video. I wish I could show you guys, but Rampage 92 with the Ultimate Warrior on the front, the Battle Royal, sealed with a keychain too. Even it's pretty sweet. It was $10 shipped to my house.
Wow.
It's got the right watermark. So just like anything, I was when I joined Twitter, I started trying to make friends wherever I go. I love this community. They're super supportive. I have like more friends than I could ever even dream of now. But I talked to Dirk Diggler, and I told him, I think it's Dirk Diggler. I'll leave his name in the comments.
Yep.
I said, hey, have you seen any of this? He's very knowledgeable. He lives in Michigan. They're around the same age. We have a lot in common. He's a dad, wrestling collector. And he said, yeah, I'm into it. And without any hesitation. And I was like, what? And I was like, this is really cool. And these are really cheap. And he's like, yeah, some of them sell for big money. And I was like, I had no idea. Like, it just shows you the tunnel vision when you get in a certain lane. Like, that's just how I operate. And I was like, wow, there's a whole lot of opportunity here. And this is kind of fun. Like, I always thought VHS and CDs would come back. Maybe I'm crazy, but
right.
I just think it's cool. I mean, the only downside to it is, some people make the case, well, they're big and you got to move them around. And who does that? But for me, I have two soft spots, ticket stubs and VHS, because we're never present anymore. We're just go, 800 miles an hour, which, part of me likes, but that's not really sustainable too. So,
right.
I don't know. I started picking these up. I think I picked up 2 to 3. I'm going to pick up more. I even bought, I'm a marketer by trade. This is not a business for me. If anyone's listening, it's just like a hobby thing. I mean, I do sell stuff, but I picked up that and I bought a .com. I bought the second highest tag on Instagram because I was like, man, there's not a lot of people doing this. There was like 1,000 tags on Instagram. And 10 years ago when I donated that collection, I had sold an Instagram page for a substantial amount of money, probably the biggest Jeep-related page on Instagram before Instagram was a thing.
Wow, amazing.
So I went back to those days of when I sold that, and basically what made that Instagram page popular was that tag. And so I saw that there were people talking about this, but not a lot. And, our space isn't crowded, but, I'm not into Prism and running to 17 Walmarts. Right. So I'm into vintage, one-of-a-kind, things with character. Like today I bought a 94 UFC Ken Shamrock. I know it's not wrestling, but Ken Shamrock was a wrestler. So
yes. No, that counts.
That sealed one, the third one, mine's not sealed, but the third one sealed sells for $300.
Yeah, I've seen
UFC.
9 out of 10
wrestling fans don't know that.
UFC 1, there's a VHS, I think it has a silver sort of chrome package, and sealed ones of those are going for thousands of dollars, if I remember correctly. I mean, it's definitely starting to get hot. So let me take a second and just tell folks about what we're doing here. So I was on a lunch break at work. We were texting or Instagramming back and forth, shooting around ideas, and I had a moment of inspiration where I said, hey, why don't we make a project out of this? Why don't we do something to sort of incentivize each other to get back into VHS? So let's set a budget, $200. Let's set a time frame, and let's buy. And in a month, let's get back together and share what we bought, and also share that in a 2-part series on YouTube. So this is part 1, where we're introducing the idea, and then part 2, of course, will come in a month when we have made our purchases. And I think that one of the rules, and I think we're kind of making up the rules as we go here, but one of the rules is that we're not going to share with each other what we purchased for this project. I mean, outside of the 1 or 2 maybe we've already bought, until the end. And it'll be kind of a discovery to see what direction we took it, where we found value, if we went in the direction of nostalgia, personal collection, what we learned from it, and see where it goes. So with that in mind, I have a couple questions, and what I want to do is, of course, this is going to be the answers to our questions now, and then in a month we'll see if our answers have changed at all to these questions. So the first question is, what do you know about Wrestling VHS?
Not much. Buy sealed and look for the Coliseum video stamp is what people have told me.
Okay.
But I'm not a very good guy at just following what other people do. So I'll probably, research the hell out of this, 19 different ways to Sunday. So
I'm in the exact same boat. I'm completely new to this, and I know the hobby has changed a lot too. So I don't know where Wrestling VHS stands in the hobby outside of the couple days of research, which means combing eBay and just seeing what's sold. That's the extent of my knowledge. It does seem like VHS falls into a few categories. Like you said, there's sealed and unsealed, there's ex-rentals, there's re-releases, there are collections, there's the old clamshells. I think they've been called big box. I think that's what people call them sometimes as sellers. That generation of VHS versus the more modern VHS when DVD was sold alongside it. So I think there's a lot of different directions and a lot of ways that we might approach what we target. So the next question is, what do you think you will target at this point, or do you have any idea?
Well, my go-to is I just collect what I love. So 80s, 90s, stuff I like to get stuck with. That's always been my mantra. I don't buy for I buy sometimes with speculation, but maybe only 5%, 10% of the time. So I'll probably just collect my golden era, like the Attitude Era and, that 90 through 96. Like that one Survivor Series with Undertaker eating the turkey, the doctor running around.
Hope it's not the gobbledygook one, is it?
I'll send you the picture after we're done. But I love that graphic. Anyway.
Yeah. Pete Rose jumping out of a big egg or whatever Vince had up his sleeve that year, right?
Art and colors jump out to me. 91 Impel appeals to me because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's loud. It's it speaks to the colors I wore. Everyone was going to school in loud clothes. It was a different time. But and to go back on another quick point, I am not going to go into I'm sure there will be a debate what's a rookie VHS or not, but The Rock on a movie on a Paramount Pictures, I'm not collecting that stuff. I'm going to stay in wrestling or if there's a fighter crossover with UFC, maybe, but that's it. So I'll pretty much stay in those 2 lanes. I'm not collecting Disney movies that The Rock's in.
Right. So I think I'm a few years older than you are. So my era was mid to late 80s. That's when I was really big into wrestling as a kid. It sounds like you were maybe late 80s, early 90s. So I want to, I mean, for me, the nostalgia is going into the Blockbuster or whatever the local video store was on the corner and seeing WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 2, and WrestleMania 3. Iconic clamshell videos. So right now, if I can find a good deal, I'm not going to overpay for something, but if I can find good representations of any of those three, I want to own that VHS in that form that I bought it, or excuse me, in the form that I would have rented it as a child.
Well, you touched on a good point, though. You just made, you just kind of gave me goosebumps in a sense. I didn't like physically walk myself through that situation, but I vividly remember in my area it was West Coast Video.
Yep.
And I was on the East Coast. It was a small independent chain, and they had their own room. It was like a closet. It was like you go left for the adult and you go right for wrestling.
Right.
And I was like, and it was real thin, but I remember my mother used to take me after baseball practice.
Yep.
And she'd be like, "What do you want to get?" And you get these bricks in your hand, and you're like thinking it's like the second coming of Jesus. You're so happy. It's great. So
absolutely. So I'm going to be targeting that, I think. But I also, part of me wants to buy only sealed and early copies of whatever video I might find. I don't want to, buy the re-releases. I don't want to buy the collections. I want to buy, the original, pressing. And I want to, I think, focus on the era before DVDs came into play. So if the release was originally pressed on both DVD and VHS, I think I'm going to stay away from that era and only focus on events that came out when VHS was the only medium. And that's really as far as I've taken it in terms of my thoughts. But once I get into it, maybe that will change, and maybe I'll target something else.
Well, that's a super good nugget because that's what's going to be really scarce,
Right.
Because like ECW was in Philly in my backyard, and I'm pretty sure that stuff's not on DVD.
Right.
And I would love to find some of that too. I guess I just let some of that cat out of the bag, but.
Yeah, I would too. The early ECW, I think that's going to be something to hold for generations.
I'll make you nauseous because I had a whole box, like a moving box, filled with that stuff. I bought it at a flea market years ago, and the guy must have had some kind of relationship with ECW because, like I said, it's 45 minutes down the road in what is now a Ross department store. It was in the basement, and then it went to a strip club, and then it went to Cabrini College. Right. But I had some pretty good ties with that, that federation or whatever you want to call it, league. So
good. And now the last question is, what do you hope to gain or learn over your month of purchasing?
To be honest, I really just want to have fun, as cliche as it sounds, but I'm also kind of curious of like what the VHS collecting community is like, because the wrestling community is like shown so much love. Like everyone's so great. I'm like blown away by like how cool this community is. When people said that early on, I was like, yeah, and I was like, we'll see. And there were some spats here and there, but like people are great. So I'm excited just to meet more people and see what other people's thought processes are and how they think. And what, like that point you just made 5 minutes ago is so good because that's what's going to be really scarce. I would have went out and bought all the ones that were double dipped and mass produced on DVD too. That's why I think it's good to have like hobby staples that you really appreciate and get your value and your news from too. I'm not saying we're it, but we're just two guys having fun.
Right.
And seeing what becomes of it. Who knows? We might buy a Tesla in 2 years, or we might be like, oh, that was the stupidest idea.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but we had a lot of fun documenting it, and
at least the cardboard starts a fire in my cabin in upstate New York. This VHS probably have to pay somebody to recycle them.
Right.
But can I ask you one quick question?
Of course, yeah. By all means.
Are you going to be public about that? Are you doing? I'll put it this way first. Are you online or in person or both? As far as the search, are you a flea market guy? Are you?
I don't.
Scour the web.
Well, I'll tell you. Up where I live, up in Maine, there are not as many opportunities for the hard sell. I mean, it's mostly online. So I'm gonna look. I haven't had much luck finding wrestling related stuff in the flea markets that my wife and I go to. We love it. Most of the flea markets and sales around here are much more geared towards, Maine is vacation land, and there are a lot of, tourists and people looking for high-end antiques that they have shipped to their New York mansion. That's what a lot of the flea markets and antique stores around here focus on. There are some with vintage, but it's going to be hard for me to find it in person. So I think I'm going to have to be online. I'm going to do some research into that, though, as well, and see what avenues online, I find the best values in. I have had good luck with eBay on a lot of things. I think that there are still opportunities on eBay, particularly in auctions. And in thinly populated areas like wrestling. I mean, as a nugget, I would never I'll say never, but I would not put a wrestling card on an auction right now on eBay, because 7 days is not enough time to find the buyer that's going to want that card, in my opinion. Gotcha. It just isn't. So, that being said, I think it still is a good place to buy if you're looking to purchase in that area. I don't think you're going to find deals on NBA cards and baseball cards and Tom Brady rookies, but you might find deals in wrestling cards or Wrestling VHS.
Yeah, that's also why I kind of love getting back into wrestling, because there isn't that much wrestling cards, so they're kind of scarce. And a lot of people just, like, every card show I go to in Philly, like the baseball card dealers, they don't want to deal with this stuff. So it's just like a thin sliver in their box, and they're like, yeah, take it. And it just amazes me. That might change now, but anyway, I only asked that question about the flea market thing because I thought I was, the cat's meow, and we were going to be the first ones to the party. And I asked a couple of vendor guys at one flea market I frequent, and they're like, oh, no, some guy just cleaned me out of those.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
And this Tom was the perfect for, pickers, resellers, whatever, collectors. It was the country bumpkin flea market out in the middle of nowhere where everything, like, it looked like, a bomb went off inside there. And I was like, this has got to be a gold mine, right? And the guy had a whole corner, like, devoted, probably, I don't know, like shelves and shelves. And he said some guy just came and bought everything. And that was pretty recent, too. So I was really surprised by that. But again, there are so many facets and avenues that I don't know everything, Right. There's a lot I don't know about.
Right. Right. And I'm in the same boat. I mean, I think in terms of my learning in this, or what I hope to gain from it, what I hope more than anything is that we can shed some light on a new avenue for people that are passionate about wrestling, and maybe give a little clout to this area, or continue the clout that people are already starting to build, as you suggested. There's an old saying in investment, and you may have heard it yourself, or if you haven't, maybe it's not an old saying, but your time to get in on something is not on the ground floor, it's on the second floor, because on the ground floor, there's still a lot of risk. On the second floor, you're still really early, but you've gotten that first sort of echelon, so you're getting the momentum, already moving in the right place. And my feeling is that that's where Wrestling VHS is right now. It's starting to get some traction, and I feel like it's going to push forward. So I want to learn about it now. I want to have that in my in my collection. I want to have I don't expect to be an expert on it, but maybe get my feet wet a little bit in that area of collecting. So that's what I hope to gain at it. And more than anything, I want to have fun, and I think it's cool to collaborate on something like this. It gives it a little bit more energy, and gives it a little more purpose. So that's what I hope to gain out of it.
I think your points are great, and I think it's great for the community, because you hear the conversation like, I'm priced out. It's like, well, here's a sandbox you can play in for pennies on the dollar,
right?
And if you have to unload it in a pinch, you probably double your money,
right?
You buy $10,000 a case of Prism, you're not going to be able to unload that. You can take in $2,000-$3,000 loss right now. I mean, like, you buy $500 and get 250 VHS wrestling tapes. Okay, the wife leaves, a medical emergency happens, whatever. You can turn those over if you need the cash pretty quick, probably.
Right.
That's just how I think too. I don't know. But you had a whole episode on intrinsic value and liquidity and whatnot too. So.
All right. Well, good. Well, any parting thoughts? How can folks find you? You know, if they want to check out what you already have in your collection right now.
Yeah, I mean, just pretty much throw my name, Wax Pac Man, in the internet, and all the major social platforms will come up. I'm on YouTube. I try to break vintage wrestling boxes that pertain to me and that are fun, like that 91 Merlin that I sold you, and some other stuff. But yeah, Twitter, Instagram, the whole 9 yards. So
that's great. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you gained something from this discussion. I know I definitely did, and I'm sure we'll do it again in the future. Thank you very much, Mr. Pac-Man, and let's do this again.
All right, sounds good, buddy. Thanks.
All right, take care.